Welcome back to All Things Lord of the Rings with your host Alex, also known as Solanus Dracone. As is clearly becoming a thing, it's time for the corrections and retractions portion, yay! All our corrections today are from Rich Sila on Reddit. Correction the first. I originally stated that the Vanyar never set eyes upon Middle-earth again after coming to Aman. This is not true. There is one time they set eyes upon it again, and that's going to be covered in a future video. Number 2, he also pointed out that there's no real hard evidence for me to have said that Melian's power made Thingol the tallest elf ever. It is a fact that he is the tallest, and it is also stated clearly that Melian rolled some of her Ainu power over into him, but I drew the connection between the two facts myself. The two could be unrelated things, I will grant. On the subject of Elwë, also known as Thingol, I am going to point out my own correction, or at least an inconsistency I have noticed. After reading through again, it turns out that Orme didn't just go fetch the elves and they all came with him. The way it actually went down was that Finwe, Elwë, and Ingwe were chosen as ambassadors from the Quendi at Wherein, and those three originally went with him directly to Valinor to behold the trees. Afterward, Orme brought them back, and they talked all the rest of the elves, except for the Avari, of course, into coming on the journey. Elwë did make it to Valinor and did behold the trees himself, but it was on the return journey with his people from Wherein to Valinor that he found Melian and wasn't seen again for that 200-year stretch. I just wanted to cover this topic because I was mistaken before, and I think that this detail does deserve to be mentioned. The third correction Rich pointed out was that there was no real evidence to suggest that Utumno and Angband were connected by tunnels. While it is the truth that the books mention deep hidden vaults and places underneath each of the two fortresses, they do not explicitly state that they're connected. But on a personal note, come on, it's Melkor. He's a crafty bastard and he made the orcs, who had all of the Misty Mountains connected via underground tunnels in the Third Age. I highly doubt that he would have turned up an opportunity to make routes between his two greatest strongholds which didn't risk overland travel. I'm drawing that conclusion myself, but I think it's a logical conclusion, so I'm going to stick to it. Rich also pointed out that, once again, my geography was a bit off. Utumno was in fact the northernmost of Melkor's fortress, as far as northeast he could get. Angband and Utumno are about the same place longitudinally, just about 1,000 miles apart laterally. I'm afraid that I have to confess, the vast majority of the script writing in this series comes from my own memory, with quick checks to the wiki to get some more insight. It's nearly impossible to tell which pieces of information I give out that will be either incorrect, false, or misleading until someone calls me out on it, but when I am called out on it, I will always check my copies of the Silmarillion and the Lost Tales and the Children of Hurin to get the truth, and if it's big enough detail to warrant it, I will correct myself as I am doing now. So with that obligatory moment of honesty aside, on to the subject of today's vid. As I stated before, Finwe, the king of the Noldor, had 3 sons, 2 of which were with his second wife and were named Fingolfin and Finarfin. The first son, the one he had with his now-deceased first wife Miriel, was Feanor, and he's who we're focusing on here. Born under the name of King Finwe, because as I've explained, the elves name their kids something as a placeholder until the kid makes a proper name for themselves, Feanor is arguably the most accomplished and influential. In the Silmarillion, it is stated, Feanor was made the mightiest in all parts of body and mind, in valor, in endurance, in beauty, in understanding, in skill, in strength and subtlety alike, of all the children of Iluvatar, and a bright flame was in him. He was so full of power that his very birth was too much for his own mother to bear, and she passed away, becoming the first death in Valinor, and the first death from natural causes of any elf. Feanor showed amazing talent in smithing, writing, and pretty much anything he turned his mind to. It was Feanor who created the elven alphabet called Tengwar. He did all sorts of amazing things, creating and making anything was possible to make under the aspect of Aule. Gems, swords, armor, he did it all. He knew Galadriel growing up, and even once asked if he could have a piece of her hair, for reasons, and she refused him. Kind of puts an interesting spin on the Peter Jackson films that when Gimli asked Galadriel for a strand of her hair and she gave him 3, the camera panned to Legolas, smiling mysteriously. He married a lady named Nerdanel and had 7 sons with her. These sons were named Maedhros, Maglor, Caligorm, Caranthir, Curufin, Amrad, and Amras. Yes, this will be important at some point. Feanor's greatest work, however, by far, was the creation of the Silmarils. To say that this was his greatest work is slightly underselling it. This was his magnum opus, his absolute most astounding accomplishment. The Silmarils were 3 jewels, the most perfect jewels that ever existed, said to be fashioned from a gemstone that Feanor himself invented for this purpose. He shaped them perfectly, shined them perfectly, and with the permission of the Valar, he actually imbued these gems with light from the 2 trees. That's right, actual light from Laurelin and Telperion was captured within these gems. These were the original precious, the most amazing, most priceless, most valuable things that existed upon the face of Arda. Varda herself placed a blessing upon them that no hands mortal or evil could ever touch them without being badly burned and withered. Did I forget to mention that Feanor was a hothead? I should have mentioned that. For all his amazing awesomeness, he was kind of an asshole. He knew how awesome he was, and he was pretty in your face about it. Arrogance and pride were his weaknesses. And that was a pretty darn handy for certain someone who had just got done serving a 3-age prison sentence in the halls of Mandos. That's right, kids, Melkor's back on the scene, and he had some plans, oh yes he did. He had convinced the rest of the Valar that he was done being a pain in the ass, that he just wanted to be a team player now, and the Valar believed him, because after 3 ages of imprisonment, who wouldn't have repented their ways, right? Nah, no. Melkor was still Melkor, and his new plan was subtlety itself. His new goal was to corrupt and destroy the Noldor from within. Now, Feanor didn't get along with the rest of his family. He never liked his dad's new wife, Indis, and he darn sure didn't like Fingolfin or Finarfin. He really didn't like Fingolfin. Now, Feanor didn't trust Melkor one damn bit, but that was just fine for Melkor. Feanor didn't have to trust him. He convinced Feanor and a good portion of the rest of the Noldor that the Valar weren't the benevolent beings that they seemed. They suddenly seemed to be trying to hold the Noldor back. The Noldor began to feel like they should go back to Middle-earth and claim some stuff of their own, to make their own conquests, and maybe go back to Cuiviénen. Even convinced them that the Valar feared the might that the Noldor could obtain. Now, when I say that the Silmarils were the OG precious, I am not kidding. For Feanor, his obsession with his magnificent jewels would make Gollum say, "Bro, take a chill pill already." He began to believe that everyone wanted the Silmarils from him, especially his damn half-brother Fingolfin. Melkor planted that particular seed in Feanor's mind, and Feanor wasn't about to question someone offering assurances that what he suspected was true. Melkor had convinced Feanor that Fingolfin was trying to usurp his rightful place as Finwë's heir, and so for the first time in Valinor, the Noldor began to make weapons. Proper weapons for fighting wars with. Of course, none of this was true. Fingolfin had absolutely no desire to usurp anything. He even wished that he had a better relationship with his older bro. But Feanor would have none of that, and one day in front of everyone, Feanor pulled a sword on Fingolfin and threatened to kill him if he tried any more of this insidious usurpation. This was the first time in Valinor that anyone had drawn a weapon on someone else. This action really kind of ticked people off, especially the Valar, who decided that Feanor had to go. So they banished him from Valinor, and he withdrew to his own city in the north of Aman, called Formenos. Finwë loved his son so much that even though it pained him to see the feud between his 2 sons, he decided to go with Feanor to Formenos. Fingolfin, of course, forgave Feanor, but the matter was out of his hands by that point. Now, the Valar knew some bullcrap when they saw it, and they damn well knew that Melkor was the one behind all this. So Tulkas was called out to drag Melkor back, but Melkor had seen that one coming from a mile away, and he dipped. Gone without a trace, nowhere to be found in Aman. That's where we're going to cut it here, folks. There's so much more to tell of Feanor that it really needs to spread across 2 or maybe even 3 videos. Sorry to do this to you, but I can't go cheating myself out of more subject matter, or cheating you guys out of hearing more details from having to condense or make longer scripts and thus much longer vids. So thank you all for watching. Once again, I am Alex, also known as Solanus Dracone, and this has been All Things Lord of the Rings. Goodbye.